Alright, we've got a pretty good update for today. So all of the parts are in at the Mazda dealer and I've picked them up. And come over here, we've got the little pieces. So we've got the fender bracket, we've got the little seal that goes at the back side of the fender. We've got the marker light for the driver's side, the tow hook cover, and if we take a look at the invoice real quick, so the list price for everything, so these parts plus fender hood and bumper cover, if we look at the list price, that comes to $1,961, and the Mazda deal, the local Mazda dealer, they matched internet pricing, so that came to $1,060, so it's $900 off, which is about 46% off of list price. So that's pretty good pricing. If we take a look at the fender, I've never had a fender come in this elaborate of a box. Very heavy box, and it's kind of like an origami, the way it unfolds. Once it's unfolded, take a look at it, and at least it keeps it from getting damaged. It had to come from Texas to South Carolina, so it didn't get beat up in transport. I don't see any dings or there's no dings or dents or anything in it. Just a little scuff mark there, but nothing to worry about. And these are aluminum, so they'll definitely bend pretty easy. It looks like it's in good shape. All of the tabs are where they're supposed to be. They're not bent. Cool. So I'll sit this on the car a little bit later today and try to get everything lined up. Alright, let's take a look at the hood. It's well packaged, and the inside doesn't have any damage anywhere. Usually, if anything's going to get damaged, corners are usually the worst things. Like the fenders, it's aluminum, so it's very delicate. I don't see or feel anything in it, so should be good. Considering it took almost 2 weeks to get here, I'm glad there's nothing wrong with it. This thing is huge, it almost doesn't fit in the back of the truck. It's so wide. Definitely got to get some help out in the garage today and put this on today so that it's not sitting around. Definitely do not want anything to happen to it. And here we've got the bumper cover. Very well packaged, like everything else. So it's in undamaged condition, which I expected it to be, considering how well it's boxed. And for whatever reason, Japanese cars, if you buy an OEM bumper cover, they don't come already in primer. Every OEM bumper cover I've bought from domestic and German brands, they've always come primered and ready to paint, but for whatever reason the Japanese cars don't. I'm going to run this over to the paint shop today, have it painted, mostly to check the color, see how well it matches. Bumper covers never really match that well to the rest of the car anyway, and like the back bumper on this MX5 doesn't match the rest of the car, so I figure I'll have the front bumper painted. If it matches really well, then there shouldn't be any issue getting the hood fender and door painted. If it's off a lot, then I don't know what I'm going to do. But yeah, I'll run it over today, and there shouldn't be any issues with the fit on the front of the car because all the sheet metal is OEM new, and the damage is so minor in the front. There shouldn't be any alignment issues. Since how this is the only thing, it just needs to come forward a little bit. And the fender mounts to here, and the bumper cover mounts to the fender. So if I get the fender lined up with the hood with the headlight, then the bumper just kind of follows along with everything else, because pretty much from here over this way is undamaged from the accident, so there shouldn't be any issues with any of the mounting holes across the top. There won't be any issues from there over where it clips in and fits under the headlight. So yeah, I'm not worried about any fit issues with it, so I'll go ahead and paint it, and I'll get the hood and the fender put on it today and start lining everything up. I like working on this one. This is a really easy hit, so these are the kind I like to work on. Talking with my dad, he's been doing body work for 40 years now, and he's told me stories of clipping cars. So he's chopped cars in half and put them together. He's had some that are pretty destroyed, and this is back when he was working with insurance companies, and the insurance companies was like, yep, put a roof on it, put a back half on it, and send it down the road. And back then everything kept a clean title. So yeah, you think like, oh, it's a clean title, so never been in an accident. Yeah, bullshit. People put a lot of things back on the road that are pretty hammered. This is a pretty light hit. So it was, like I said in some other videos, I'll bet the only reason it was totaled was because of the airbag deployment, which still isn't that difficult to put back together, but the cost is outrageous if you're not doing it yourself. So hopefully another week or two should have this thing buttoned up and hopefully ready for a test drive. Alright, I got the hood set on it, and I'm gonna have to play with the alignment a little bit. Like on the passenger side where there shouldn't be any issues, the gap is fine to right about here. Then it starts getting wide down to the headlight. So even though the accident happened over on the driver's side and it was pretty minimal, for some reason it looks like this corner of the fender's out. So everything else, the gap's really even all the way up here. This line is fine. So yeah, I don't know why that's out so far. I tried to rotate the hood, but there's almost no adjustment in the hinge, location here on the rail or on the hood itself. I don't know why there's so minimal amount of adjustment, but it's like millimeters that you can move it. So we'll leave that be for now, and I'll come in and start trying to fit this fender. I know I'm going to have to, like I said before, I know I'm going to have to bend these locators back, both of these and this one. This one and this one I think are okay. They don't look bent. And then start working on this area up here. So I'll probably rough pull it so that I can get the fender to line up with this spot and these locations, and then start finessing it and lining it up with the hood. I'm going to try to, this is so flimsy, I think I can just put a little bit of pressure on it and then take a rubber mallet and maybe just start tapping on it back here, put a little more tension on it, tap on it some more back through here, and hopefully it'll come back without having to heat it or anything. And like the paint isn't even cracked on it, so I'll try to minimize any damage to it. So we'll get out the tools and start pulling on it, and hopefully it cooperates and isn't too big of a headache. Alright, I went ahead and threw the fender on it now that I've got the radiator support pulled back. It came back pretty nice. Got a little bit I had to massage it a little more than I hoped or anticipated, but I can clean that up, put a little skim of filler on it, and paint it. You shouldn't notice it. I had to grab just behind the headlight and just behind the headlight in the center and behind the headlight to the right to pull it out and then kind of hammer it back into shape. I'm working on the alignment now. I think it's going to be a little bit of a challenge because, like I've mentioned before, the fender mounts to these fairly flimsy attachment points there, back there, and there's one at the back of the hood here, under here. And in the accident, the whole fender was shoved back, and it bent all of those backwards. So now I'm having to adjust each one of them independently as I go. So when I put the hood down, I just have a few loose screws in it now, but like when I put the hood down, I was trying to align the flushness, because I've got to get the fender the right height the whole way down. So when I first started it was okay back here. Well, actually it's a little off now. Fender's a little high in relation to the hood. It's okay here. Down here isn't bad. But the gap's off too, so I've got to adjust that as well. It's definitely a pain in the ass because you gotta just try it, see if it works, then just kind of keep moving your way around, and then you gotta try to get the headlight lined up too. Luckily the headlight has a pin that goes right in here, just a push pin, so it locks the left-right relation of the headlight to the fender. So at least when you do that, now you can move the headlight and the fender as an assembly left and right to get the alignment with the hood. And so that takes 1 degree of freedom out of it. Now for aligning this thing, the holes in the top of the fender have a fair amount of wiggle room. You can see the holes they're pretty good sized clearance holes. If we look at the bottom of the fender, so this hole is pretty much a no clearance hole. So this one pretty much locks the fender rearward and there's no adjustment to it. This one is slotted for forward and back, and then you have the hole under here, which, like I said before, has a fair amount of play in it. So I'm pretty much starting with that bolt, so that'll lock. That's pretty much the pivot point of the whole fender this way. And if you recall, the door is buckled pretty good right here. So just from feeling around, the door is not damaged from this crease down and from pretty much here up. So I'm gonna have to get my my gap and flushness from here down correct, and from here down, and then wherever it falls in the center of the door, that's I'm just gonna have to bend this lip to match the fender at that point. Apologies for the low lighting. Lighting in the garage is not very good. The new shop will have much better lighting. So about an hour and a half in, and I think I have the alignment of the hood and the fender correct. It was a real pain in the ass. I did end up having to move this fender in. I didn't want to, but I ended up loosening the attachment screw here, attachment bolt here, and moving the front corner of the fender over because I couldn't get that gap quite right, which was bothering me because it was fine from like here back. So I moved the fender in, and I also loosened the hinge bolts and the bolts going to the top of the upper rail, so down in here on both sides, and then kind of just wiggled the hood around until it was in the correct spot, and then like over here I was able to reach in behind here with the cowl off and tighten everything down so that it wouldn't move when I opened the hood. So I guess the next step with the alignment pretty good. I said I'll start fixing that door, and then get everything sanded down and ready for paint. Well, today I'm going to start by trying to kind of rough in this door. Like I had mentioned before, this wasn't damaged in the accident, but somebody wrenched the door open against the fender after the accident and bent the front lip and buckled it in. So I'll take the wooden dowel rod and just start tapping it along the edge. Like I talked yesterday, the fender has a fair amount of adjustment in it, and I've got everything bolted down except for there's a screw point up here and about here, and that adjusts the flushness of the door in and out. So like if I push on it, it'll move in and out. So the flushness is pretty good down to about here, which is good also because that's below where the roll is. So pretty much from here to here where the damage is a flat part of the door. It should be mostly straight up and down, or just a very gradual radius. So I really didn't want to have to deal with any kind of roll. I like to keep it just slightly over flush from the fender into the door. That way air will go over the door. Because if you make it flush, or if the fender happens to be slightly under flush from the door, then you can end up with air getting under the. It can go under, and then can end up with whistling or even some air leakage into the car. Now to take the door panel off, it's pretty easy. I looked it up on YouTube. It's just cover under here that you pop out. There's a screw, and down in the pole handle or down the pole cup, there's a rubber mat you take out, and there's a screw, and then you just pull on it, and there's just plastic Christmas trees that hold the rest of the door panel on, and then you unplug the switch cluster and unhook the latch mechanism, and the door panel comes off, and the speaker's up here with just a few screws in it, and it comes out. I've got the door panel off. That only took 5 minutes, if that. And have the speaker out. So there is a nice access to get to everything. I can easily reach the big dent. So you can see it as I push on it. I can't pop it out yet because with the lip still bent the way it is, but I should have good access to push that out as much as I need. So now I'll start on the outside. I've got the door roughed in. I have the fender on and tightened down everywhere, and it came out pretty nice, I think. We've got a nice even door line. Not workable. Got a nice even door line and door gap running top to bottom. Door fits nice and flush with the fender the whole way down. You can see I've got to get behind it with a dolly a little bit. There's a little ripple in it along the edge here, but for the most part it came out pretty well. Once I started bending this area back, this big buckle just popped itself back out, so there's just a little hint of a crease here and like a little wave right here. And I can't get to this area. There's a door beam that runs across the door, and it runs right behind this dent, so I'll just have to fill that. It's a pretty minor dent, but I should be able to, now that the edge is good. Like I said, once I dolly this and even it out a little more, I can use the edge of the door and then back to about here as kind of my good spots. So then just put a thin coat of filler in here and use the Durablocks and kind of bridge both sides of what's good, and then anything that's low will be filled in, and it should come out pretty nice, I think. The only issue now, fucking hood is not right. Now that I've got the door edge fixed, I can't adjust the top of the fender in more, and now I've got a huge gap back there. The rest of the fender isn't terrible. It goes wide and then narrow to the front. I don't know what I'm going to do with that, because if I slide the hood over, then it's going to really widen the gap on this side, and this side's pretty decent now. So this is always the fucking pain with working on getting panels lined up, because I'm so particular on getting gaps very even. Like, I've got the feeler gauges out to make sure that it's even the whole way down, and you go and spend hours trying to get the gaps right, and from the factory it's not right. So I don't know, I'll play with it some more, see if I can get the hood figured out, because like I said, I can't move the fender line anymore. I wasn't getting anywhere with getting the hood lined up, so I pulled it off, and so this hole was pretty much just a small clearance hole to the screw. So the screw really couldn't move in any direction in this hole, and this was slotted so it could move forward and back, which really makes no sense. So I grabbed a drill bit and drilled it out. So now I've got a fair amount of movement in all directions on both of these holes, and with the bolts down here loose on the hinge, it can move forward and back, left and right. So I should have a fair amount of adjustment on the hood now, and I did the same thing over on the passenger side. So let's see if it'll actually line up now. drilling out those holes in the hood hinges seems to have done the trick. I spent another 2.5 hours and just started from scratch. With all of the sheet metal being OEM, I know the fit has to be good. Unlike aftermarket parts, which I've had horrible experiences with, trying to get them to fit right. Even the Kappa certified parts have shitty fit. But these are all OEM, and this fender, nothing over here was damaged in the accident, so I just went back to, I moved this fender back where it was, and set the hood line on the passenger side to what I needed it to be, and I came over to this side because I can't move the fender forward and back at all. So the door line is good and I can't move it, and I can't move the top of it because it'll throw this off. So I split the gap between, so I used the feeler gauges and I split the gap at this spot on both sides of the hood, and then I used that dimension to set the gap the whole way down the hood on this side. And then once I locked down the hinges and where the hinges attached to the hood, I just started playing with this fender to get the gap correct. It was pretty good down to about here, and then I had to play with it down here because it was too close. So yeah, I didn't have to do too much massaging. I had to adjust this this bracket a little bit out so that I could get it to line up. But this fits okay now. All the holes over here in this part of the fender bracket line up. The headlight lines up. The hole in the headlight to the fender lines up. So yeah, it's a pain in the ass, but it would really bother me every time I looked at it and saw crooked gaps. So it should be okay now. And since how the bumper attaches to the brackets over here, and I know the fender's okay, and then they sit under the headlights, so they really shouldn't, the bumper should fit okay because it's not attaching to anything that's out of whack.